Right, Lokesh, I think we can get started because we have already 25 plus audience and more people are joining. So let's get started without further delay. So good afternoon, one and all. So good to see all of you after a long gap uh, because a few weeks, there weren't any brown bag sessions that have happened. However, there were other trainings that were taking place. Be it could be a stress management and also uh, health and all those things. So meanwhile, we are back again with the brown bag sessions, and today we have Lokesh, who is going to talk about Azure DevOps and other topics. So meanwhile, before we get started, I request everyone to switch on your cameras so that we'll take one selfie as a team. Ajay, Rakesh, Vijay, please may I request everyone to switch on their cams. Yeah. All right, I'm on screen one. Vivek, Vijay, Krishna, please. All right, so our WinWire pose, three fingers, a signature, please. Okay, on the count of three, that's 1, 2, and 3. Please hold on. All right, I'll move on to the second screen. People, just a few more seconds, please hold on to the same pose. Okay, count of 1, 2, 3. Niharika, please pose. Okay, one. Okay, sorry, hang on. Okay, count of 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you. Thank you, people. Lokesh, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Shiva. So let me share my screen. Uh, Shiva, can you see my screen? Or can you all see my screen? Oh, I haven't shared it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I think you guys might be able to see my screen. Okay. Cool, guys. So we'll be discussing about Azure DevOps. First thing is I'm no expert in this. I only have experience 3 or 4 weeks. I've been working on Azure DevOps for past 3 or 4 weeks. And I just wanted to share what I've learned in this past 3 or 4 weeks. And Azure, so DevOps is, basically a buzzword that has been floating around in the IT market. So it was really great to know about it. And I'll try to share some of the findings or the things that I've worked on. So that might give you an idea of what Azure DevOps is. So let's get started. So first of all, just wanted to thank the Gilead team for giving me this chance, and a shout out to Venkat, who actually gave me a document. So basically, I worked on ADF, which is Azure Data Factories, and this is a service on Azure Cloud. And I got a chance to work and integrate that service with the Azure DevOps. So Venkat gave me a document that really helped. And there are some external authors, or you can say experts like Robert Lindley, Benjamin Day. These are from Plural Site. So at the end of the course, or maybe after the course, I will try to share all of the links, external links as well as internal, so that you can get an idea of that. And yeah, so there is a guy called Prasenjit. He's from, outside WinWire. And there was an article about ADF and Azure DevOps integration, and that also really helped me. So yeah, so just wanted to acknowledge the information that I've gained, and acknowledge the people out there. So the agenda for today will be, we'll discuss what is DevOps in general and why it's needed. We'll then take a tour of Azure DevOps, which is Microsoft Cloud DevOps. And then we'll see what are the branching strategies. And then finally, we'll jump onto the ADF service or the ADF resource and try to integrate that with the Azure DevOps. So it's going to be mostly a practical session. So I think there should be a recording for this session as well, and maybe after you understand, after I walk through the entire session, you can do a little hands-on, and that will be really helpful for you. Because I've used my personal credentials. As long as you have some free credentials, you can experiment with Azure DevOps. So I will suggest the same to you as well. So let's get started. So first of all, let's try to understand what is DevOps. So DevOps in simple terms, or in terms of a definition, is a mindset plus a set of practices that focuses on automation. So automation is a key word here. Now, what we have been doing in IT industry up till now is that we develop something that we have to ship it to the different department or the different team, and they actually do the deployment for us. So there is a lot of manual process involved. So basically, first thing is we have to make sure that release is properly tested, and then we ship it to a particular environment, and the IT operations team or the deployment team then does the deployment. So the idea behind DevOps is that to combine all these processes so that it can be automated. And with automation, you can significantly save time. And that is where the why comes into picture, why DevOps is needed. Because our ultimate goal, guys, is to deliver the deliverables in the fastest time possible. So why it is possible that we can deliver the things in a much faster way is because you have everything automated. Once you fix the bug, all you have to do is with the help of automation, you can release it to, say, QA environment, and QA can test it out with the automated test plans. And then it can be ultimately deployed to the environment where the client can really see it and provide a feedback. So not only it provides you the fast delivery, but it provides a quick feedback as well, so that you can up your quality. You can up the quality of the deliverables. So the DevOps actually refers to the process of automation. Now, there can be a scenario where you are using some of the services of DevOps, but you are not really automating it. Then you are not 100% following the principles of DevOps. DevOps is basically a point where you, or in the concept where you automate the entire thing from development to QA to your testing as well, and as well as your deployment. Now we will shift focus to Azure DevOps, which is Microsoft Cloud DevOps, which I have used in the Gilead project, and I just wanted to give you an idea of how it looks like. So first of all, we have to understand the setup of a DevOps. So once you log into a DevOps account, you will create an organization. Under the organization, you can have several projects. You can control the access to these projects among different teams. And underneath the projects, you have various services, like you have Azure boards, Azure repos, pipelines, test plans, artifacts. It may be a case that your project, you need only a repo or a pipeline. And in fact, what we are going to do today is we will be looking into the repo and a pipeline. I didn't have chance to explore much about Azure boards, although we are using Azure boards in our Gilead project as well, but I didn't really get a chance to explore that. And I think Azure test plans really come into handy when you are in the QA team or a QA resource and you want to test out the things that have been delivered to you. And then Azure artifacts, as the name suggests, you can store your source code, you can store any artifacts that are related to the project. So this is how the structure looks like. You have organization at the top level, then you have projects, number of projects underneath it. So now that we know what is the general setup of Azure DevOps, let's try to take a little tour, and we'll try to create an organization, and ultimately we'll be using that organization when we'll be working with the Azure Data Factory. So let's jump into the practical stuff here. So once you type dev.azure.com, you are brought to the screen. So you have to click on sign into Azure DevOps. And once you do that, you have to log in with your credentials. So I'm going to use my personal credentials here. and we are under the project. So let me, we are logged in into the DevOps account. So let me switch to the correct directory. So you have to be careful about the directories. So for me, the correct directory is this one, Loki Subo. So I will click on that. And again, we'll have to log in. So after logging in, so when you log in for the first time, you will notice that it has created an organization for you. This is the default organization, and it actually gets created with your account name. So in my case, the account name was er.lokeshama08, and we got an organization created with the same, exactly the same name, without a dot in it. So now we will create and change the name of this organization as well, but we'll create a new organization. And let's click on continue, and let's give it any name. So we'll say WinWire BB session 2020. And then it will ask you where do you want to host your project. So we'll say South India, then click on continue. So once an organization is created, it will ask you to create a project that we will see shortly. Okay, so we have created the organization now. Now, before creating the project, let's look at the settings of this organization. And you can see the organization settings button or hyperlink at the bottom left of your screen. So we'll click on that. So here is the option to change the organization name. If you want to change the organization name, you can click on here. And if you scroll down, you will see that it will give you the details of who is the owner. So I am the owner, so that's why my name and email address comes up. And there is an option of deleting the organization as well. And on the left side, you can see it is giving you the options of projects. So right now we don't have any project underneath it, and that's why you see it blank. Then you have users. So I think my name will come up because I'm the sole user here. So you will see my name popping up. So yeah, so my name comes up. So if you have an Azure Active Directory set up, you can hydrate your users for a particular organization with the help of Azure Active Directory. You can connect to a particular Azure Active Directory, and all the users will then become a part of your organization. Then you have billing as well. So I'm not really sure how this billing works. This is something that I need to explore. Maybe when you're using the services, obviously there would be some billing charges on top of it. So yeah, maybe if you can explore that, that would be good. So then you have other policies as well. You have securities, permissions. You can give appropriate permissions to different teams. If you have different teams or different users, you can do that. So this is all about the organization. And on the top, you see a breadcrumb-like navigation, which means that it tells you which window or which page are you in. So right now we are under WinWire BB session 2020 project. So this is the organization name. And then under settings, under permissions, this window comes up. So you can see on the left side, the permissions is highlighted in dark green. So you can create a project. So let's give it a name of test project. You can specify any description here. And we want it to be a private project. So let's leave it as a private. And then you have an option of specifying. So you have a Git service inside as well, inside this Azure DevOps. So Git is nothing but your source control or your version control. So I think some of the on-premises tools are VFS or TFS. So it's like that. So it's posted on the cloud. So we will use Git for now. And then there is an option of work item process. So it basically depends on which kind of methodology you follow in your project. So if you click on this question mark, it will give you various options and it will try to explain what are the methodologies involved. Now, I don't have much information about it, so I'll not be able to cover much here. So you can see some of the options are basic, agile, scrum, CMMI. So based on the methodology that the project is following, you can select that. So we'll leave it to basic. and then we'll click on create project. So now you have created a project. This is how the project looks like. Again, you can look at the top. This is the breadcrumb navigation. You are under test project. So on the left side, you see a bunch of services. These all are services which can be switched on and off based on your requirement. And let's look at the project settings at the bottom. So you had organization settings. Now you have project settings. So we'll click on here and a new window should pop up. Again, you can change the name of the project here. You can specify the description, nothing additional here. You get to know the administrator for this project, and you can add the administrator as well. But this is something that is relevant to us. So if you are using Azure DevOps only for the only for source control or version control, you can just switch on the repo service, and switch off all the other services. I think you might get some savings on the billing as well that you can explore. But there is an option of switching off and on the services that you want to use. And again, the same thing, you can associate some of the teams with your project. You can add teams, you can add permissions. What else do we have? So the important thing here is that we will be covering in this session is the repos. Repos is where your code goes in. Your code will be stored here, and it will be stored in terms of version control. So you can specify what changes you made. You can compare different commits, and then you have pipelines. So these pipelines, so first thing is, don't get confused between the ADF pipelines that we will be going to see in just a while. And these pipelines, these are release pipelines, which means that if we want to release certain things from our dev environment to any other environment, maybe it could be a staging environment or a QA environment, we can create a pipeline and we can create a release. I think we will see this as well in action if the time permits. But let's go back to the repos first. Now you see here repos, you can create a number of repos inside your project. But where do you see the list of repos is at the top. So you can see it has created a default repo, which is the name is equal to the project name that you created. So the project name was test project. So a test project repo got created, and you can create many more repos inside your project. So I mean, if you have different departments, like in our case, we are working on the data load and reporting part. So we have created a separate repo for that. And there is a .NET application as well. So they have created a separate repo. So it's always good to kind of differentiate your development when it comes to the project. So you can do that. So now we have to understand the branching terminologies or the branching concept. So for that, let's go back to the slide and let's look at what branching is. So whenever you are working on a particular piece of code using any tool, you will create a branch. Why you will create a branch? Because you are not sure whether you want to do the commit to your code or not. This especially applies when you have integrated your code with the Git. So if you want, if you're working on the branch, there are different strategies or different policies around that. But the main thing is you'll have a master branch, which will always be there, which is created by default, and which will mostly be used for the deployment purposes or the release purposes. Then you can create a number of feature branches if you are working on a project, or if you're working on a Scrum, you can create various Scrum branches. So these branches are nothing but a copy of the code that you as a developer are working on. So once you are satisfied that the changes are good, you have done some unit testing, you can merge those changes into the master branch. So that process is called a pull request. So you can see here that the pull request is when you merge the changes from the feature branch to the main branch. So important concept here is you have a master branch, and then you have different feature branches. And in terms of talking about Azure Data Factory, which we will be working on shortly, we have a different branch. We have an additional branch which is called ADF publish branch, which is created by system. So how it works is the master and the feature branch concept works the same way. You will have a master branch which will be used for deployment, but ADF publish branch will have so what you call an ARM template. Now, what are ARM templates? These are just JSON files. So if you're working on the cloud, if you want to deploy the changes from one environment to the another, you would use those JSON files in order to do the deployment. And those are called ARM templates. So we'll be using the ADF publish branch in order to move the things, in order to move the ARM templates from one environment to the another. So feature branch will be something you can use as a developer. We will get to know about this shortly, or we'll explore about this shortly. So let's now try to integrate our Azure Data Factory with Azure DevOps. So for that, you will have to go into the portal. So now we are in the portal. So I've already logged in. So before we do that, let's understand the problem statements here. So when I started working with the ADFs, so this was my first experience working on cloud, I always had this question in mind. So one is, how do we do source control? So that was in my case, I was the only developer for ADF, but what if you have more than one developer or more than two developers? If multiple developers are working on the same ADF account, how do we do the source control? So that question will be answered shortly. And then the second one was, how do we deploy the ADF's pipelines from one environment to the another? So that question will be answered as well. So we'll go back to the portal. So we are now in the portal. So we have created two resource groups. So when we talk about environments in cloud, these are nothing but your resource groups. Yes, it could be onto a different subscription, but essentially it means when you have a QA and dev, they have to be in the same subscription. So that's first thing. So what we'll do is we'll create an ADF in our dev environment, and once we are done with the development, we will try to deploy that to a QA environment. So let's do that. So we'll create the pipeline from scratch. Quick walkthrough for those guys who haven't worked on Azure Data Factory. So let me pull up the data factories here. Okay, so we will create a new ADF account. So subscription is pay as you go, and then we'll select the resource group. So we'll be creating the dev environment first. We'll select this, and then we will be hosting this in East US. So let's do that. And let's give the name as something like ADF BB 2020 dev. So you can, so the second option or the second tab you see here is an option where you get the chance to link your ADF account with a Git repository. What we'll do is we'll click on this option that we want to do it later. And for the time being, let's just create the ADF account. So the validation is passed. Oh, sorry, it's going on. I think it's taking a bit time. Let me just refresh it. Okay, let's do it again. Dev, we want to host it on East US. We'll select that. We'll give it a name ADF BB 2020 V2, and then we'll click on create and review. We don't want to integrate Git as of now. We'll do it once the account is created. So let's create the account now. And meanwhile, it's getting created. Let's understand the problem statement or what the ADF pipelines will be doing. So we'll be simply moving the data or copying the data from one table to the other. And we have two tables here. So we have IPL teams as our source table, which has list of all the IPL teams. And then we have IPL teams destination. Very simple scenario, guys, because our main objective of the session is to show how the ADF is linked to Azure DevOps. So we'll be moving this data from one table to the another. So now the deployment is done, our resource is ready. So let's go to the resource now. And so this is how the home screen looks like once you provision an ADF account. So now you have to click on author and monitor. And first we will try to link it to the Azure DevOps Git, and then we'll create the pipeline. Okay, so this is how the window looks like, home page looks like. So we are going to go into the author tab. Now we are in the author tab. So first thing first, let's integrate or link this ADF account with Azure DevOps Git. So we'll click on setup code repository. Now it will give you two options. It is giving you an option of using GitHub, which is another kind of repository system, but we'll be using Azure DevOps Git. Now we will select the Active Directory. So you have to be careful which Active Directory you're using, because you remember we created the Active Directory in the second, we created the second Active Directory, which is Loki Subo, and we'll select that. Now, so this DevOps account is nothing but your organization. So this is the default organization that was created, and the second one is the organization that we just created. So we'll select that, and you will see a test project underneath it. And so you can create a repository from here, or you can use the existing one. So if you use the existing one, it will pull up the test project repository, but we want to create a new one. So let's give a name, something like store ADF pipelines. And then it is asking for the collaboration branch. So let's see what collaboration branch is. So this branch will be used for publishing. By default, it is master. Change this in case you want to publish resources from other branch. So we'll leave it to master. So what happens is when you are done with the changes, when you want to deploy, or when you want to push, deploy is not the right word actually. When you want to push the changes to the cloud, you will have to use this publish all button, which is, I think, not clear, but we will see how this publish works. So if you want to publish the changes, then only you can do that only under the master branch. That is what we are trying to say here. So we'll do master, or we'll specify master here. Then there is an option of specifying a root folder. In our case, we are storing only the ADF pipeline, so we don't need a root folder. But in your project, if you have to store the DB scripts along with the ADF pipeline, you can specify the root folders. So basically, these folders will be underneath or beneath your repository, and you can, classify based on that. So we'll not select any root folder here. We'll click on apply, and let's see what happens. So what we are trying to do right now is we're trying to link this ADF account to Azure DevOps Git. Now it is giving you an option. Do you want to use, what is your working branch exactly? So do you want to use the master branch as the working branch, or do you want to create a new feature branch? Or you can say the feature branch could be your personal branch where you want to do the work. So it's always good to choose your own personal branch, because until you are sure that the pipeline changes are done, that the implementation that you've done is final, the data is moving, you have done unit testing, you don't want to actually commit your code. So let's call it a feature branch, and we can specify any name, or let's call it my feature branch. Okay, now let's click on save. So now your DevOps Git, Azure DevOps Git is actually linked with this ADF account. So everything is set up as far as that is concerned. Now we can actually do the development. We can create a pipeline. So let's create a pipeline. So in order to create a pipeline, you just have to click on this plus button. You click on that, click on pipeline, and you can specify the pipeline name. So we will give the name as test pipeline. And since we are just copying the data from one table to the another, so we will use the copy data activity here. So we can say that source to destination table. Now you have to specify the data sets. So whenever you are working with the copy data activity, you have to specify the source, obviously, and you need to have a destination. So in ADF terminologies, destination is referred to as sink. So first, let's start with our source. Now, do we have any source data set created? No, so we'll create a new one. And since in our case, we are using Azure SQL database, we will select that from the list of options here. So let's select Azure SQL database. Okay, click on continue. And let's call it as a source table. Now what happens is when you create a dataset is just, you can say a table or group of tables, or it's a file or group of files, but you need to have a connection string as well, because connection string will give you the information from where to fetch the information. And connection string in ADF terminology is referred to as link service. So we'll create a new link service and we will refer it to as Azure SQL database. So ideally, best practice is that you specify the connection string in Azure Key Vault, but we will do it manually here, or we'll store everything within the ADF pipeline. So let's select our subscription and then select the server. So we need to select the correct database. So we are selecting independent works here, specify the authentication. So let me grab the credentials for this, just bear with me. So username will be server admin, and then we will type in the password. So first, let's see whether the connection is established or we get a success here or not. So connection is established. Let's create the link service now. Okay. So what it means is that it is asking us, it is giving us the option that the link service will be published immediately. So whatever other changes we are making, those will actually go into the feature branch, but this will directly go to the master branch and it will be saved there. So let's click on OK. Okay. And then you can specify the table name. So we have selected, our source table is IPL teams. We've done that. We don't want to disturb any of the default settings. Just we will pull it aside. Okay, we'll click on OK. Okay, so now we have configured the source. Let's try to preview the data. So that's always good to see whether the connection is properly working. So we can see that the data is coming up without any errors. Now it's time to configure the sync. So we'll have to follow the same process, virtually the same process. Again, select our database type. So it's a Azure SQL database. We'll select that. And in this case, it's a destination table. So we'll specify that. And link services. So since the tables that you saw here are hosted under the single database, the connection string for both of these tables will be the same. In order to access these tables will be the same. So we are, for that purpose, we are using the same link service that we created. So we will be using Azure SQL database here. And I think the table, destination table is IPL teams destination. Leave the default settings as it is, click on OK. Okay, so the sync is also configured. Now, since I'm making these changes in my feature branch, I can save this, and these changes will then be saved onto your into your Git repository. So let's check that actually. So first of all, let's see whether it was able to create the repository. You can see that it has created the store ADF pipeline repository. And once we are under that, right now, yeah, so you can see there are three branches here: master, my feature branch, and ADF publish branch. So if we go back to the slide, this is what we saw. You will have three branches: ADF publish, master branch, and the feature branch. So we got a success in that. And I think the feature branch will have your pipeline. See, the feature branch has the pipeline. And do we have the pipeline in the master branch? Let's see that. So master branch, we don't have any pipelines as of now because we haven't published it or merged or created a pull request. So let's come back to the ADF pipeline now. So everything is established. We have saved everything, but let's just debug the data. Let's see whether it is working fine or not. And so there is an option of specifying a pre-copy script. So just before you insert data into the target table, you can specify a script, a pre-copy script. So in our case, we want to clear out the data first and then insert. So you can use this command truncate table. Let's come back to the pipeline, specify this. So again, click on save. Now let's just test it. So before, so there is one thing that you need to know as far as data factory is concerned. When you click on add trigger will take those settings which have been published to the cloud. Now these settings have not till been published to the cloud because we are working on our local branch. So we will just use the debug option here. So you have to be careful while debugging because it will actually move the data. So if you don't want to, move the data when you're working in, for example, let's say UAT environment or prod environment. So just be careful in that. So I think it's currently running. So if it succeeds, we would expect the data in the target table as well. So it was successful. Let's see whether we have the data in both the tables or not. Cool. So we got the data in both the tables, the source table and the destination table. So which means that I am satisfied with whatever changes I've made, of the pipeline I've made. So it's time for me to merge the changes or create a pull request. So let's see how that is done. So all you have to do is you have to click on publish, and you can see here publish is only allowed from collaboration branch. So right now we are under my feature branch. You can see on the top. So we'll click on merge the changes to master. And once you do that, it will bring you to the Azure DevOps screen. So let's give it some name, test merging or test pull request, and specify any descriptions here. And so you can see here, you're creating a pull request from my feature branch into master. So let's now create it. And there is one important is that you have an option of approve. So usually the best practice is if you have senior developers in your team, if you have the subject matter experts, or you can say technology experts. So it's always good to get what changes reviewed from them. So you can specify so this comes under your branch policy. So you have to go to the Azure DevOps window, and under Azure DevOps window, you have branches here. So you have to specify the branch policies by selecting the particular branch. So this always should be done on your master branch because that is where most of the commit or the merging. And you can see there, you have the option of require a minimum number of reviewers, check for linked work items. So there are a lot of properties here that you can utilize, but I think this one is important. And yeah, so you can explore these. So in our case, we don't have any approvers. So we'll just click on complete. And you're able to see some important pointers here. So it says that once you are done with the merging, you will lose the my feature branch. So I think this does not affect us. So we can go ahead and do that. But before that, there are merges as well. And I'm actually not sure about the definitions or differences between these merges. So, I mean, if you have more knowledge, or once you get more knowledge about the merge, You can specify the type of merge you want to do, but we will leave it to the default setting of no fast forward. I'm actually not sure what exactly happens, but leave it at that, and then we'll click on complete merge. So I think the merge has taken place successfully. So it's done. So now let's move on to our repository. We'll go to the repository. And right now we are in the master branch. Now you can see that all the different artifacts are coming accurately. You have the pipelines as well. You can see a test pipeline underneath it. And there are different branches as well. So important thing is my feature branch has been deleted now. And once you click on ADF publish, once you go into the, sorry guys. So once you go into the ADF publish branch, you can see that the ARM templates are not yet generated because we haven't done the created a pull request. So what we did was we went into the publish tab, but before publishing, it was asking us to create a pull request. So we have done that. So now, since the my feature branch has been deleted, it is again asking for the working branch. So we will leave it to master and then click on save. Now we are ready with the publish. So let's do the publishing. Okay, so it will give you the summary of the changes that you have done. So you have created a pipeline, you have created a couple of data sets, and then we'll click on OK. So you will notice that after the publishing is done, it will try to generate ARM templates, which again are nothing but your JSON files, which actually includes the JSON code of whatever changes you have done. Okay, so the publishing was completed as well as the generating of the ARM templates. So we are good with the development now. Let's do a quick check. We'll do a refresh here. So now you can, under the ADF publish branch, you have the ARM templates. So these will then be used in order to move the pipeline from one environment to the other. So you have the ARM template for factory, and then you have ARM template for parameters, ARM template parameters for factory. So what happens is you will not have the same set of tables or same set of databases when you're moving from one environment to the other. That practically doesn't happen. So all those changes, all those configurations will be done with the help of this ARM template parameters for factory. So you can specify the connection string here. If you have more than one data set or more than one linked services, you can specify all the settings here. And you will use this parameters page to do the deployment. So now we are happy with it. We are now going to proceed with the deployment. So for that, again, let's go back to the home page and we'll go to the resource groups. So you had two resource groups. One was brown bag dev, the other one QA. So now it's time to deploy the things to QA. So before we do that, we have to first provision the ADF account under this resource group. So for that, we will create an ADF account. So we'll go into the data factories, click on add. Okay, so what's the dev account? Okay, so this is the dev account, ADF BB 2020 V2. So so this time you're provisioning the resource under the target environment, so which is brown bag QA. The location will be East US. So let's give it a name of ADF BB 2020 QA, and then we can copy this. And so since this is our QA environment, we don't need to do a source control here. So you can click on this configure Git later, click on view and create. And then finally we'll click on create. Now we will use the release pipelines in Azure DevOps to do to automate the process of deployment. Okay, so meanwhile this is being created, let's change some of the parameters inside this template parameters for factory JSON. So so here the factory name will come. So since we are deploying it to QA, so whatever data factory account we have just created, we will specify the name here. So you can see this is ADF BB 2020 QA. So make sure this is right. And then you need to specify the connection string. So let me fetch that. So keep that thing in mind that in our case, the database is same for QA and dev. So we will use the same connection string. So we have specified here. Now let's try to commit the source. You can specify the comments. Sorry, commit the source code. You can commit the source code here. So committing is done. And also the resource has been provisioned or procured. So let's try to create a release pipeline now. We'll go into the releases. So all you have to do is you have to specify which artifacts or which templates you want to include while moving from one environment to the another, and it will process automatically. So we'll create a new pipeline. So let's just click on empty job for now. So now you have to select an artifact or you have to specify the agent job. So there are a lot of options here. I'm exactly not sure how it works. I need to do more digging into it. So you have releases, then you have deployments. I need to understand what are the releases, what are deployments. So that study I need to do. But let's start with the automation of a deployment. So the stage name is the staging. It's basically, in simple words, is your target environment. So in our case, it is QA. We will specify it as QA. Stage owner is my name itself. So we can close this out. And then we have to select the artifacts. So the artifacts, which is nothing but your JSON files, will come from Git. So the project is test project, and the repository is stored ADF pipelines. Now the default branch in our case is ADF publish, and you should always select this latest from the default branch. And then you can do the source alias as something like dev. And once you're done that, we'll click on add. So this is how your pipeline is created. Let's give it a proper name. So let's give it our first release pipeline. So it is created. Now you need to specify all of the settings where you will give the details about your target resource group. You will give the details about your JSON template. So we'll do that using this agent job. Again, guys, I am not totally sure how this works, but I followed some of the steps which I found it online. And this basically will be helpful when you are doing the deployment based on ARM templates. But if you're doing some other deployment, it might not be useful. So when you click on the agent job, a lot of options pop up on the right side. But what we are interested in is ARM template deployment. So we'll click on that. And then again, click on the ARM template setting. So here we need to specify the target environment settings. So what we are doing here is we are actually moving services from one resource group to the another. So that's why we'll use the deployment scope as a resource group. Then you have to specify your subscription. You need to authorize it as well. So I think it will ask for my credentials. So we will say lokesh.sharma@winwire.com, and then click on next. Okay, then specify the password. Okay. Specify the password. Sorry. Sorry, did I did something wrong?
You're using your personal account.
Oh, sorry for that. Lokesh Sharma. Yeah, sorry. er.lokesh sharma08 gmail.com. Click on next. Yeah, now we need to specify the password. I hope I get this right. Click on sign in. Cool, so I think it has accepted this. So I think it might take some time. So yeah, so authorization is successful. What happened? Let's try to refresh this. Or we again have to click on the subscription. So we have done that. Now our aim is to update the resource group. So we'll click on the first option and then your target resource group. So in our case, it was, or it is QA, brown bag QA, and the location is East US. So now here comes the important part. So you have to specify the, remember we have two templates. One is the main JSON file, and then you have the parameters file. So we'll select the template, main template here, and under the template parameters, we'll select the second option of the parameters file. Click on OK. And the deployment mode, you can specify deployment mode here. I think incremental refers to the fact that if you already done the deployment and if you want to deploy only the changes that you have made in the latest release, you can use incremental. But I think complete refers to the fact that it might override your existing deployment. So I think in our case, since we haven't deployed anything, it doesn't really make sense. So we'll select on, we'll leave it to the default value of incremental, and then you can specify the deployment name. Let's give it a name of test deployment. So now everything is done. To save this, and let's create it under test or test pipeline. This is actually a pipeline. So we'll save it under this folder. So I think it's done. So now let's go to the releases now. So you can see here, these settings or this page is set up. So you have the pipelines on the left. So I think this is the page for the pipelines, and then you can create a release. So you can see here that we have selected, or we have created the pipeline in the test pipeline folder. So this comes up right, but we want to create a release as well. Now let's create a release. So you can set this to automatic process, which means that whenever your changes or whenever the changes to the default branch are made, this pipeline will be triggered. But we want to do it manually, so leave all the settings as default. So we are going to deploy it to QA, and we are getting it from source. Now let's create this. You can specify the description here. So here you go, guys. We have now created a release. So again, this is something that I have to understand. So you have releases here, you have deployments. I think you can have multiple deployments for a particular release. And if you make changes to your source code, you might have to create a new release. Maybe that might be the fact. So let's try to see whether it has ran or not. This is something that I've also kind of struggled. I mean, how to deploy the releases. So right now it has automatically taken it. Maybe there's a manual way of doing it as well. So as soon as we were done with the creating of the release pipeline, so the release, it actually started a deployment. So I think there was a setting that we saw to control that. So this is how, so right now the job is running. So right now it's what it's trying is, it's trying to deploy the pipeline from your source environment, that is brown bag dev to brown bag QA. So it has done the job successfully. So let's go to the resource group and go to the resource. Okay, sorry, we will go to the resource group and the ADF account that we created. And once you open the target ADF account or the QA ADF account, you should see a pipeline here. Expand this, author, test pipelines. So here you go, guys. So the test pipeline now has been deployed from the dev environment to. Let's try to run this. I mean, I was running it. Let's try to run this. Or let's first see whether the connections are established. So we have only one linked service. Let's see whether the connection is established. For some reason, it doesn't like it. It is explaining about the credentials. But when we try to do it manually, or when I try to do it manually, actually it works. So let's do that.
Lokesh, on your SQL Server pass, you have to enable the firewall rule.
Okay, so all right, okay, I got that. So is it like enabling for a particular IP address, or?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, okay, got it. Thanks for that. So now the connection has been established, and click on apply. And let's test out this pipeline. But before that, let's first of all truncate this table, because anyways, when you run the pipeline, the data will be deleted. So first now try to test it. So you have the source table, but the destination table is empty. You have to remember, guys, this is a single environment for dev and QA. Practically, that shouldn't be the case. So let's now we can trigger the pipeline as well. So because this pipeline has already been published to the QA environment, and let's see what happens now. And in order to monitor the pipelines, you can go to the monitor tab. Okay, so the pipeline has been run successfully. Now let's see whether we have the data in the destination table or not. Cool, guys. So what we have done is we have answered both the questions. That is, we actually developed a pipeline. We saw how the source control or the version control can be done. Then using the release pipeline in Azure DevOps, we were able to deploy the pipeline from our dev environment to the QA environment. And this can be automated based on the changes that you make to the ADF publish branch, or whatever the default branch that you select inside the job. So I hope, guys, this was helpful. If you have, I think we are nearly out of time. But if you have any questions, if you have more curiosity around it, we can have a session offline. So you are welcome to ping me. So I hope you get some. Thank you all for joining. And back to you, Shiva. I think if we have 5 minutes more, maybe we can open it for any questions if anybody has.
So Lokesh, after we approving the pull request, the future branch is getting deleted. So yeah, the next time, if I'm going to create something on ADF, do we need to create a?
So yeah, so if you remember, there was an option of unticking the deleting of the feature branches.
I saw that it's an option. If you want to keep the feature branch, I can uncheck it. But see, I have checked this delete feature branch and have approved the pull request. So in that moment, the feature branch got deleted. But later again, I have to do some work in some development work in ADF. So in that scenario, do I need to create again a new feature branch?
Yes. If you don't want your changes to be committed to the Git, you can always create a new feature branch, as you can see on your screen. So you can give it a different name, and you can create a new feature branch.
Okay, thank you. And another question, so after publishing the changes to master, the ARM templates are getting generated, right? So then when we are creating a release pipeline, we are changing the parameter file with the actual target values.
Mm-hmm.
So in that scenario, in the next publish, again the parameter file is going to be overwrite.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think the parameter file will be overridden. That is what I found based on my experiment. But I think there could be a way to control it so that the parameter files is not overridden, or maybe a smart way to maybe just save the parameter file somewhere. And once you are done with the publish, once a latest set of JSON files or the ARM templates are generated, maybe you can just upload the parameter files that you have saved. I think we have done this in the Gilead project. So we actually save the parameter file separately so that whenever we have to do the deployment, we will just upload it and use that. So that's actually a good question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, hi, this is Ram. As per my understanding, what needs to be done is whenever we publish, the JSON file will get updated. So in the if you remember, we have a override parameter option in the release pipeline. So we have to configure the values for the target environment over there.
Okay. That's a good setting. Yeah. Actually, I didn't try that. Maybe that's a good point, Ram. Thank you for that.
So Ram, it is for the parameters file, we have to include that override thing, right? Is that the thought you were telling, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. It's a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Hi Lokesh, I have a similar question which Pawan has raised. Like in case of data factory, right, Azure Data Factory, we created a pipeline and then we click on a publish. That's where the ARM templates are generated into a repository. That is the case in case of Azure Data Factory. How about, let's say I have a .NET Core application. So I want to generate a similar kind of ARM templates. Just wanted to know about that.
Yeah, I'm extremely sorry. I don't have much expertise on the .NET application. But we have a .NET team in Gilead as well. So I think you basically are asking about how do we do the deployment using a .NET application, especially when we're using the cloud resources. I think that is your question, right? Because I'm not sure whether we are using the ARM templates in case of .NET application or not. So ARM templates are basically used in case of ADFs or some of the other resources, but I'm really not sure on the .NET part. Sorry about that.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Thank you for all your questions and thank you for the pointers as well. So Shiva, back to you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Lokesh. Thank you, everyone. And the session was really interactive from back to back for 1 hour. And, there were some good questions at the end as well. So I hope, Lokesh, I might be receiving some more requests from few of the members, asking for one more session on the same topic. So I'll keep you posted, Lokesh. Sometime soon we can plan on a version 2 of the same topic.
Sure, yeah.
All right. So thank you very much, one and all. Please be safe and have a nice weekend. Bye all.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shiva. Guys. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Shiva.
Thank you.
Lokesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lokesh.
Bye.
Thanks, Shiva.
Thank you, Lokesh.
Thank you.
Thank you.